Alright guys, Revolve Rustler here, and today I'll be reviewing the August 22nd edition of Monday Night Raw. But I do first just want to say, I am wearing a Conor McGregor shirt, and that's because, as much as I don't like the guy, you have to respect him. If anybody out there, I know there's probably some UFC fans who like my channel. If you watched the Nate Diaz fight with Conor McGregor, it was an exceptional fight. It's probably the fight of the year in the UFC. And those guys really tore the best part of my weekend of watching three big wrestling shows was watching Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz just go to war, and in the end Conor McGregor obviously won. But you got to respect the guy. I might not like him, wrestling fans aren't going to like him, but you definitely got to respect him. So anyway, let's get into this show. Monday Night Raw, August 22nd, and the big news going in was that Finn Balor would have to relinquish the Universal title because of a torn labrum, which he injured when Seth Rollins gave him the buckle bomb into the barricade. Now that now makes two people that Seth Rollins is injured with the buckle bomb. I personally think that means that he needs to get rid of the move. It's a risky move anyway. I know Sting was old and, you know, he had a kind of beaten up body anyway, but Balor's a guy who hasn't had as many injuries in his career, has a great body, to be honest, in terms of like how healthy the guy is. And to me, Balor didn't help himself. He kind of spiked his arm on the barricade, and then popping it back in was by far the best thing he could do. And in all honesty, he does make that matchup they had more impressive when I think about it. But I do think Rollins should really get rid of the buckle bomb now. I think it's a risky move. It's kind of like the curb stomp. Curb stomp was giving people concussions, and I mean, yeah, I think they should honestly get rid of it. I like the buckle bomb. I like it when Michael Elgin does it. But here, Rollins, you know, I'm not going to say it's Rollins' fault that he injured Balor. It was neither guy's fault. Balor kind of made a mistake selling it to the barricade. But yeah, I do think you've got to make your matches look special. But sometimes a lot of workers can do great things by just doing very, very safe things. And guys like Sami Zayn, I believe is a great example of someone. Guys like Okada. Guys like that can really do awesome matches, but do things that are so safe. And I think Rollins should get rid of the buckle bomb. So anyway, I should probably actually get into Raw. Raw kicked off with Finn Balor having to relinquish the title. He gave a speech. To me, he seemed like, not that he didn't care about it, he seemed fairly lackadaisical. Like, you know, he was kind of, you could tell he was annoyed that he'd had this big moment, and I mean, I'd be really happy I don't have to carry that belt around anymore. But he seemed kind of just like, damn, I've lost the belt. But in the end, it was just like, yeah, I am going to get it back. I imagine Finn Balor, as soon as he returns, after 6 months, which I'll talk about in a minute, will be thrust back into the Universal title picture. There's no real top babyface that really meets Finn Balor in terms of popularity, so I think he's definitely going to be one of those guys when he comes back, and he's going to be right back to the top of the card. Balor will be out for 6 months, and that is a huge blow to the Raw roster after losing Paige for a month due to suspension, obviously. Balor is going to be, and Sasha Banks obviously due to injury, which we'll talk about later on in the show. Balor's going to be a huge loss for this show. He was the big thing. He was what everybody was talking about. The mainstream fans, the casual fans were talking about Finn Balor and how cool his entrance was and how cool he was and how cool the Demon was. And now he's gone. He's gone for 6 months. He might not be here for WrestleMania, which is a huge worry because, you know, that show, the entrance that guy could have at Mania. I mean, just his entrance at SummerSlam was awesome, but at Mania his entrance could be so much cooler, and it's going to really suck if he's out for Mania. But you know, Finn, get well soon. Please come back. We're gonna miss Finn Balor. I was really hurt when Finn Balor, you know, had to announce that he was relinquishing the belt, because that's the 4th guy in 2 years that's had to relinquish a title belt due to injury. We had Bryan relinquishing the WWE World title, Bryan relinquishing the IC title, Rollins, of course, vacating the WWE World title, and Balor now vacating the Universal title. So it really sucks that these guys had to, you know, especially Balor, because he's a guy who's, honestly, now it seemed like it was his time to shine, and It's a real shame. But anyway, Balor announced, it says, thank you to the fans, thank you to Seth and Mick for giving him the opportunity, and thank you to Seth Rollins for giving him the match of his life. Balor walks away, and Rollins comes out kind of joking and laughing at Finn Balor, saying, now we all know who should be the champion. And Mick Foley and Stephanie put together a series of matches, which was all they said, to determine who would be the new Universal Champion. It was said that later on in the show there would be a it was said that there would be a fatal four-way next week later on in the show between the winners of 4 matches on this show. And this segment basically ended with loads of challenges for the belt coming out. You had Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, obviously, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Enzo and Cass, Chris Jericho, you know, the field basically. And it's a good field, but you watched it and you were like, this is so predictable. And the first matchup was Seth Rollins and Sami Zayn. This was a good matchup, but I was so angry when Seth Rollins just beat Sami Zayn. I love Seth Rollins to death, but I really just felt like they played safe, and I feel like they're going to play safe in that 4-way next week and just have Seth Rollins win. I feel like if you really want to bring in this new era, which you did with Finn Balor, you need to show that you aren't just going to cower away when something bad happens. So Balor being injured doesn't mean you can just play safe and go with Reigns or Rollins. Go out there and go with a shock. You go with Sami Zayn. The crowd loved Sami Zayn here. Sami Zayn and Rollins, honestly, if Zayn beat Rollins here, would go on and win the belt, then you could do Zayn and Rollins at the pay-per-view. It makes total sense because Rollins beat Sami Zayn a couple of weeks ago on Raw, so you could have played that storyline up. And even if you wanted Zayn to hold the belt for a couple of months and then give it to Rollins, that would have been fine, but I feel like giving the belt to Rollins, which they haven't done yet, obviously, it'll be next week, but it's very simple and he's definitely the favourite, and it'll be good, but I just think they need to take a chance and maybe go with one of the other guys in the matchup, which I'll get to in a minute. But anyway, I gave the match 3 stars. I think Sami's selling was particularly good in this matchup. He sold the ankle. And what worried me was that Sami Zayn's selling is so excellent to the point where you honestly think the guy's injured. And good match though, 3 stars. In the end, Rollins wins with a pedigree. Clean as a whistle. Clean as a sheet. And then we moved on straight away to the Owens-Neville match. Another good matchup. Again, fairly predictable. This time Kevin Owens winning. And he advances as well to the Fatal 4-Way next week. 3 stars, good matchup. Chris Jericho helped Kevin Owens here. Kevin Owens in the end won though with a sort of reverse F5, although I just call it a fireman's carry, not a fireman's carry, an accordion rack neckbreaker. So accordion rack neckbreaker. Cool match, good match, 3 stars. Owens to me, and I'll talk about this at the end, who I think should win the 4-Way, but I'll tell you now, Owens would be the guy I'm going to pick, and I'll tell you more why at the end. So we had the New Day, they cut a promo and they basically said, oh look, we've held the belt for a year. Basically, fairly pointless stuff here. Anderson and Gallows come out and say, you're only holding belts now because you got DQ'd, we deserve a rematch. Oh my god, that makes total sense, doesn't it? And then match is scheduled, it's going to be Carl Anderson against Big E. They had a matchup, it was fine, I gave it 2 stars. I think I gave it 2 stars. I gave it 2 stars. In the end, Big E wins with the big ending. Whatever. It seems like Carl Anderson is always the fall guy. I feel so sorry for him. He's such a great wrestler. And honestly, nobody even talks about this, but Carl Anderson is a great singles wrestler. He had great matches in Japan with Tanahashi, with Okada, with Nakamura. In fact, I watched the Nakamura one at Power Struggle the other day, and that was a really good matchup. So this guy's a great singles wrestler in this company. He just hasn't clicked yet. As a singles wrestler, as a tag wrestler, he's working really well in this company, I think. I just think as a single wrestler, they need to give him more of an opportunity because he can really shine, and that's what New Japan did, and he shined. So, you know, had one of the best matches of the year with Tanahashi. In a match with a Tanahashi, a year with a Tanahashi Okada match. So, then we moved on to Titus ONeil cutting a promo on Darren Young. This was one of the worst promos all year. This was a horrible, horrible promo. Titus ONeil, where have your promo skills gone? He didn't have any to begin with, to be honest. Although he did point something genius out, which people need to point out. He pointed out that how can Darren Young be great again when he was never great originally? So that was a great promo. A great part of it, not a great promo. The promo was terrible. Eventually, in the end, Bob Backlund runs out and Titus O'Neill slams him and then gives Darren Young, who comes out, the Clash of the Titus, and then that ends the segment. So it seems like at Clash of Champions, which is the next Raw show, I believe it's in 5 weeks, it'll be Titus O'Neill and Darren Young. And this is the issue with these brand-specific pay-per-views. You're going to have so much filler that it's going to make the great stuff, it's going to bring it down a level. And if you think SummerSlam was a show with great matches that were brought down by a lot of filler, imagine these brand-specific pay-per-views. These are going to be like 4 out of 10 shows. I haven't seen a bad wrestling pay-per-view from this company. I mean, Survivor Series last year was weak, but it wasn't bad. Like it was like average in the end. But I'm very worried for these brand-specific pay-per-views, especially for SmackDown. But Raw aren't doing too much better, especially with the injury to Balor. Then we had Rusev against Big Cass, the third match of the qualifying for the 4-way next week. This was actually where they... Oh no, it was actually after the Neville match where they announced that it would be a 4-way next week. So we had Rollins and Owens in at this point, Big Cass and Rusev. Again, I thought this was fairly predictable. Big Cass was always going to win here. He was always going to win by count out, actually, I felt as well, because he was not going to pin Rusev as the United States champion. And it's exactly what happened. Rusev got himself counted out. An okay matchup. I don't think Big Cass is ready to be a world champion. I like the guy, but his in-ring work isn't up to snuff yet. He's a good tag team wrestler, and he should stay that way, but the company like him because he's big. And I like him. I like Big Cass. His promo ability is nowhere near at the height of Endo's, and his wrestling ability is fine, just is not world champion material yet. But anyway, 2 stars. Big Cass advances to the Fatal 4-Way next week. And then we had Tom Phillips backstage with Jericho talking to Kevin Owens about his victory. Owens is going, I'm going to win the belt next week. Jericho goes, actually, no, I'm going to win the belt. And then the two have a funny segment where they're both saying, no, I am, no, I am, no, I am, no, I am. Good stuff from these guys. They kept calling Tom Phillips Philip, I believe. And the segment ended with Jericho telling Roman Reigns that he's going to get 8. I love Chris Jericho so much. This guy's like one of the best. Honestly, people do not give Chris Jericho enough credit. This is one of the best workers in this company ever. This guy, honestly, this current run he's having might be one of my favourite runs that he's ever had. I love his heel run as the Javier Bardem character, as he describes it, where he's just very, very like, he talks very slowly and stuff. But this joking run is so excellent. The stuff with Ambrose was iffy, but now, it's great. I love Chris Jericho so much. Then we had Charlotte and Dana Brooke, I believe. Yep. Charlotte and Dana Brooke. Oh, sorry, I was totally thinking what happened. Charlotte and Dana Brooke came out and they basically celebrate their victory. Charlotte says, there is nobody on this roster that can beat me. And my immediate thought here was, they're going to bring up Bayley. They're going to bring up Bayley. And the crowd were chanting, we want Bayley, and Charlotte was telling them to shut up. And Mick Foley comes out and you're like, oh dear. No, they're not. He's going to bring out Nia Jax or something. Nia Jax wasn't on the show, by the way. But no, Mick Foley says, the crowd was still chanting, we want Bayley. Mick Foley in the end says, this was great stuff. Wow, did I only use 1 page for notes? Oh no, I used 2. Mick Foley says, we have signed the newest free agent from NXT to our women's division. So it was like, so yeah, it's Billie Kay, right? And then he goes, and then he points to the stage, and Bayley's music hits. Bayley's now a part of the Monday Night Raw roster. That makes me think that SmackDown are probably going to get someone tonight, which Samoa Joe, cross your fingers, Austin Aries, cross your fingers, Shinsuke Nakamura, cross your fingers, even though he's the NXT champion. But yeah, Bayley finally is on the main roster after so long. She's here a year and a day after she won the NXT title and really carried that company. I mean, Balor was a huge pawn in, not a pawn, but as a captain, he was a king when you look at NXT. But Bayley was the queen of NXT when you look at it. She was pretty much everybody talked about NXT, and the name that always come up was Bayley. Now she's finally here on the main roster, and she would come out and she said, oh, it's great to be here, and eventually a match would be booked, Dana and Charlotte. This match was, it was okay. This was like a 2-star, Dana and Charlotte? Bayley and Dana, that was it, sorry I forgot. And this was okay. This is probably, I think I'm actually undercutting this a little bit. This is pretty decent. I think Bayley really elevated Dana a bit here. And Dana has quietly, although I critique her a lot because she's not very good, she's quietly gotten quite better working with Sasha and with Bayley here. And I thought this was decent. And in the end, Bayley wins with the Bayley to belly, which I thought Cole wasn't going to call. And he just said, oh, Bayley hits her move. But he didn't. He in the end did say Bayley to belly, and Bayley wins. So my idea and my feeling is they're going to go Bayley and Charlotte at Clash of Champions, and then maybe go a rematch at the pay-per-view after. Bayley probably shouldn't win at the first pay-per-view because it's her first pay-per-view. I mean, Balor did, but I think they need the belt on a face, and Bayley is the biggest face in the company, regardless of male or female, regardless of sex. So I think that Bayley's the right person to put the belt on. And my feeling is, if they don't put it on her at Clash of Champions, she'll get it at Hell in a Cell, which I believe is the next Raw pay-per-view. Decent matchup, 2 3/4 stars, if I didn't say the star rating. Bayley, oh yeah, that's just the match. Tom Phillips was backstage again, this time with Roman Reigns. I have no idea what Roman Reigns said. I can't tell you, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to skip it. Then we had the first 4 names announced for the Cruiserweight Classic, which will be debuting finally on September 19th, which is the Raw before Clash of Champions, I believe. The names are Noam Dar, Rich Swann, TJ Perkins, and Brian Kendrick. I'm going to be totally honest, Noam Dar doesn't really excite me. He's had the 2 worst matches of the CWC, and that's not necessarily his fault, but you've got to try, mate. Rich Swann is an exciting character, and he's got a matchup on Wednesday against Lindsay Dorado, which should be good, but not too exciting. Brian Kendrick, again, is more of a veteran, and he's just there to elevate a couple of guys. I imagine he'll take a couple of pins from, like, Ibushi, for example, if he gets signed, which he doesn't seem like he will be. And TJ Perkins is the one that really excites me. TJ Perkins is awesome. He had a really good match with the Mac in the first round, and I'm really looking forward to seeing TJP on Raw. It's going to be something very, very special to see a guy like TJ Perkins in the WWE on, especially on Raw, especially on September 19th. The first match, I imagine, will probably be like TJ Perkins and Brian Kendrick, which should be pretty good. We had Sheamus backstage, and Sheamus was interviewed basically about his best of 7 first match against Cesaro, and he said that next week will be the second match in the series, and I will win again and again and again, and the series will be mine. Cesaro was also in a video earlier, somewhere in the show, I can't remember where, and he said that the winner was he was told by Mick Foley that the winner of the series would get a championship match. A championship match, not a US title or a Universal title, just a championship match. I would imagine it'd be the Universal title. They've already gone the route and had a US title, so if Cesaro wins and gets a Universal title match, you could always give the Universal belt to Cesaro, but I doubt it. I mean, Vince and Cesaro are wonderful friends, so that won't ever come to fruition, will it? We had a Stroman squash this week. WWE incorporated the new LGBT storylines in, and had the guy say, why? Obviously, he was asked the question from Byron. So why do you want to face Braun Strowman? And the guy goes, well, I like big sweaty men. And I was just like, oh my god. And I started to laugh, and my mum went, ooh, that's gross. And I went, mother, god, homophobia. Anyway, Strowman squashed him, reverse chokeslam, which is going to kill somebody with that move. It's a cool move, but he's so going to kill these small guys. When Sami Zayn sells that move from Braun Strowman, Sami Zayn will die. And then he hit I can't remember what you call it. It was pretty much Lashley's Dominator. At one point, I can't remember what you really call it, but obviously Strowman wins. Blah 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 blah. We had the Dudleys saying goodbye, and obviously this was broken before the show. I honestly thought that this would be a heel turn from Bubba Ray. It wasn't, and the Dudleys were in the ring. They didn't get too much of a pop. Speaking of pops, the Brooklyn crowd, again, I don't think were very good on this show. I think they were into the main event. I think they were into Bayley slightly, not much. Like, she got a good reaction, not a great reaction. And I think they were not really into this, which was shocking, because it's Brooklyn, and it's the Dudleys, and New York, and ECW, and all that stuff. Even though ECW was like Philadelphia. But anyway, the Dudleys say goodbye, and it was cool, but it wasn't as cool as it should be. And in the end, the Shining Stars come out, and you're like, yeah, they're just going to beat up the Shining Stars. They did beat up the Shining Stars. They went for a 3D through the table on, I believe, Primo. And then Gallows and Anderson come out and attack the Dudley boys and lay them out, use a magic killer and put Devon through a table. Good stuff. I really thought this was a great heat segment for Gallows and Anderson. Like, that's really, really smart booking. Please don't do a feud with the Dudleys and Gallows and Anderson, and if you do, you need to put Gallows and Anderson over, regardless of the Dudleys leaving. But, God, yeah. Good stuff, though. Like, I thought that was really smart booking. And then we had the main event, Roman Reigns against Chris Jericho. Again, the worst part of these Fatal 4-Way qualifying matches was the fact that they were so painfully predictable. And it was. Roman Reigns wins with the spear after an assist from Kevin Owens. 3 stars, though. I thought it was good. Jericho tried so hard to get Roman Reigns over with the crowd. And in the end, they cheered the finish and then remembered, oh wait, we're supposed to boo him, and booed him. So that is your main event for next week. It'll be a 4-way with Big Cass, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns for the WWE Universal Championship. Now, this is what I think will happen. Rollins will win. Now, this is what I think should happen. Kevin Owens should win. And this is why, right? Firstly, if Seth Rollins wins, it's just going to be the same error we just had. And it shows the WWE basically going, oh, Rollins is our safe bet guy. We're just going to go with him. Reigns shouldn't win this matchup. In fact, I think Reigns will be attacked by Rusev and cost the matchup. It's a 4-way. There's no DQ. I think Kevin Owens should win because you could go into a feud with Owens and Big Cass at the next pay-per-view and have Owens win, because Clash of Champions is basically going to be a throwaway pay-per-view, and if you just have Owens win in the main event and retain the Universal title against Big Cass, it'll look fine, and it'll be a fine match, and Kevin Owens can try and carry him to a fine match. But anyway, that's what I think should happen, but in the end, I imagine Rollins will just win the belt. But anyway, that is the Raw review. In the end, I thought it was a good show, better than a lot of shows, and it does show that when an issue happens and somebody gets injured and they have to vacate the belt, they can make a good show. Because I remember the show when Rollins got injured being pretty good, with some really good wrestling from Ambrose and Ziggler, Ambrose and Breeze actually, and Reigns and Big Show had a pretty good match that night. I believe Kevin Owens had a good match that show with Neville, so maybe something like that. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I thought this was a good show, 7 out of 10. SmackDown Live tonight, NXT tomorrow. Fun, 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 fun. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been Raw Wrestler. Like, comment, subscribe for more. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think to Finn Balor having to vacate the Universal title? Who do you think is going to win the Universal title? And what are your thoughts on the Dudley boys retiring and will they go to the Hall of Fame? I think that's an interesting question. I think definitely. I think them this year, Daniel Bryan, Christian, 3 men, I think will be going into this year's Hall of Fame. Thanks for watching. This has been Raw Wrestler. Like, comment and subscribe for more.